Good evening. Welcome to Investigative News, and I'm your host, Elly. And this is a World War III report. Boy, we got a lot of info tonight. I talked to William for what, almost an hour today, William, on what we are looking at for World War III. Now, we could be seeing a skirmish or World War III start in Israel. We could see it in Iran. We could see it in Ukraine. Or is it
Well,
Taiwan?
we're not going to know we're into it for a while, whether we're in it or not. World War II started before everybody thought it did.
Yeah, and we have to compare it to World War I and World War II. And when we look at both of those, are we into it? Are we into weather wars? Or are we into harp wars? Are we into um, uh, um, computer wars, AI wars type of thing?
Yeah, well, we're always in some state of war, um, but war in the civilian sectors is a little different than war in the military sectors. But we're always involved in some struggle. That's part of being a free people, and whether it's part of a bigger conflagration or not, only history's going to be able to tell us into the future.
And I know everybody wants to hear about the Trump indictment. Little bits that we can find out with the Trump indictment. What's going on? What's the secret info that we might have? Um, we have info on one of the articles that I have for later, but Newsmax, um, they do a lot of his rallies, and so to me, they have shared boxes from the DOJ that appear through Trump packed up U-Haul truck with government secrets. Now we have um, a senator now that has went and collected the evidence there. The DOJ and the State Department has been looking at, and it covers maybe the very bottom of a shoebox that they're concerned on. Um, and I don't want to say, well, they're not being fair because they haven't went after Joe Biden tit for tat. Until we can get in a DOJ, State Department, FBI that can actually look at this, um, pull out the politics, pull out what's going on in Ukraine. Let's look at the facts, because if we look at the facts, William, uh, they the what uh, not only the Biden administration has done, but then you've got to go back to Obama, to Hillary, to Carter, to even Reagan. Everybody took those documents home. Now, was he
Well, they all
allowed?
started libraries. You can't start a library without information. I mean, Lyndon Johnson had his own library.
And nobody really, what happened to those files?
Yeah.
See, that's my whole thing. What happened
Clinton
to
library.
the files of presidents that have passed away?
Trump hadn't started a library yet because he planned to go back into office.
Yeah.
There's no sense to start a library.
And he said for him to go through everything that he had, he doesn't have time for. So he really hasn't seen he hasn't seen what's actually in these documents.
No.
Or has he?
When you're in the White House, it's like drinking from a fire hose. There's so many things coming at you so quick. And a lot of it's handled by your advisors. They decide to a degree what makes its way to you, what has to be set aside because it's not in the best interest of the president, want to know what's salient. Salient means what is contextually important given the facts and what we're seeing on the ground at the moment. This is what I need to know. Everything else is noise. And you can't go and prosecute somebody on noise that they never saw. That's what administrations are all about, is filtering out the noise so the president can be the most effective he can be. So, you know, when this makes its way to the Supreme Court is going to say, you know, this is just the poison fruit of the bad decision by DOJ, and it's all going to be thrown out. We know it's going to happen as soon as it's because the president has the capacity to declassify anything he likes, and even if it's not declassified, that means he didn't see it. So either way, the president's done nothing wrong. The president has to have the capacity to have any and all factual matter that's relevant to any situation at his fingertips at any moment. We don't want a president that's limited by what he can see and maybe should see or shouldn't see, or what's, you know, important to some dictator someplace at some time for some reason. That's not the way it works. Mm-hmm. Our president is the most powerful person on earth. And when you have the most powerful person William, with the biggest bully pulpit and the largest military on earth, you want to make accurate decisions. You don't want to make things that escalate problems, and you want to solve problems before they escalate. So you want them to have all the information available. If they don't give you that information available, you can't do your job as the number one law enforcement person and commander-in-chief of the world's largest army. That's just a fact. The Supreme Court knows this, and that's the way it's going to wash out in the end. All the rest of this is just political machinations.
Yeah, and you know what gets me, William, though, is, you know, we're talking about different presidents and their choices, and I hate to dwell on this for a little bit, but they have made the choice to either let advisors tell them what to do. And, you know, when after I saw Newsom, here's something that Newsom said to Hannity. He said, well, after Hannity showed him how bad Biden was, he said, you know what? I've been on Air Force One with him. I've been in limos with him. I've been to the White House. Okay, so we know Newsom has been around Biden for a long period of time. And he said there's nothing wrong with him. Is he an advisor?
Well, either the president takes the bull by the reins, or the bull takes him by the reins.
That's right.
This isn't a job that's a passive income type thing. This is something that will beat you to death if you don't gain and control it. This is a job that is the monster job of the world. There's nothing bigger than President of the United States. There's nothing more difficult. There's nothing more draining. You watch these presidents come in, and they're elected. They go through briefings. They show up on the first day of office. They look like they've aged 30 years.
Yeah. Oh, man. Get this. Obama had, he had this beautiful black hair. Within years, he was gray.
Great old man.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on. It doesn't matter what your beliefs are, because there's always two factors in government. There's a pro and there's a con factor in government. It's going to beat you to pieces, and you have to be the final arbiter of everything that goes before the courts. My God, that's a terrible situation to be in.
And this Braggs, you remember the first indictment with Trump? Um, Now they're kind of looking at it that, according to the New York Attorney General Letia James, Bragg local and political case against Trump will take a back seat now to the Department of Justice. Now, we were told.
I think, Allie, I think if this prosecutor had to do the job of president for 3 months, he'd walk away from this prosecution in a heartbeat. If he just had to walk in the president's shoes for 3 months, he'd be done.
Yeah, because what we're looking at is now they're going to take a back seat. And now we were told by, I don't think it was Jim Jordan, but it was one of the others, that they were going to slow this down to a snail crawl. And when they slowed it down, it would push this all the way up to the election. And so Bragg is now slowed this down to where the indictments of what he has on Trump will go all the way to 2024. Now, this
I hope he does, and then this is what will happen as soon as he becomes president again. It'll be fast-tracked to the Supreme Court, and it'll be over in a month or two.
Yeah. Well, they're saying they're going to, any judge would toss either one of these cases out.
Yeah.
And now we have,
it's noise.
now we have Biden hit with second articles of impeachment. And what they're doing is they're challenging the DOJ now. They said, you have to, because of the info we have, you have to charge him. And so now, so we're looking at the second impeachment of Joe Biden, and the first one's with Hunter and Joe, and the second one is just Joe, of what he's done.
Well, so an impeachment isn't criminality. An impeachment is being let out of office. Okay. Once they're let out of office, all right, then they can be criminally prosecuted. So it's not over for them if they're impeached. That's just the beginning, if they choose to go that route.
Yeah, and I kind of want to move on because I got a lot of military news. Is the LGBTQ activists are sending bomb threats to target locations now. Now, we heard they were going to do that. Now they have followed through, and this is what they're doing. And I get this, so the DOJ isn't looking at them, they are looking at protesters from January 6th.
Well, the Q people are people of peace with their bombs. They have peace bombs. Just joking, Kelly. No, it's pretty perverted, isn't it?
Yeah, and then of all things, when I'm looking at Target, and I'm like, William, I was set up to be a personnel manager at Target. Where would I be right now? This was 1996 to 2000. Where would I be? And I'm thinking I would have been at Target, or not Target, but Walmart by now as a store manager or district manager. And I don't think I would have stayed at Target.
Great learning opportunity for you.
Yeah, but I still don't think I would have been at Target. And what if I would have been? I think I would have rejected all of this and said, we're not a political clothing store. We are a store as a whole to be next to Walmart or J.C. Penney's or Kmart, to where people can afford to shop. I wouldn't put
competitive clothing and food and goods store. Sure.
Yeah, but more than likely, once I did that, they would have fired me. They said, you're a racist.
Well, that's the problem with financiers. Is financiers don't have to make a profit, do they? They just want their dividends.
Yeah.
Until they can't get it, and then they bail out and go someplace else. Make it miserable for all the little guys, because the vast majority of the people that work at Target, they just want a job to go to every day.
Mm-hmm.
They want a peaceful life. They want an opportunity to get a leg up.
Mm-hmm.
And this really serves nobody but a few ideologists at the top that really have nothing to do with anything.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, because uh, the way they have put this into effect is all dealing with store managers or merchandise managers. Now I was just a lowly personnel manager that was doing the hiring and firing and uh, that type of thing. Now, when we look at what they're doing, even this transgender movement, they're not happy with them. No matter what, they're never going to be happy. And, we have to just say, well, if we're going to.
Elly, I want to say this. Everybody in the United States has equal rights. We have a right to expression. We have a right to due process. We have a right to go out and make, a fair salary for our labors. We have all the same things, but there's some folks that want special status, and we don't have room for that in this country. That's what other countries are about.
Yeah.
So if you're going down that road, you're going to end up getting yourself disappointed. That's what I'm trying to say, is because in the end of the United States, over time, everything works out in the wash. It takes a while. It might take 10, 12 years, 15 years. That's the speed of our court system. But you're just going to be one of many. We are these United States. We're these United States from the power of the citizens. All the citizens have equal power. And the equal power of the citizens, they're not going to give up their power to somebody.
Mm-mm.
The average citizen's not going to, after giving up a lifetime of struggle and care for their family and everything they've put into this country, are not going to give up their power. The power emanates from the bottom of this country, not from the top. And these folks want to be someplace at the above place. They don't really exist.
Mm-mm.
They're just another citizen in the end. When they retire, they're just another citizen. When they move back to the suburbs, they're just another citizen, and they're going to have to come to grips with the fact that they're average.
Mm-hmm.
We're all average. There's political squabbles, I know that. They take time to work out, but in the end, things tend to balance out, and everybody tends to be equal. And that's what's going to happen, and I'm afraid they're going to be disappointed from it. And if they are disappointed, they're going to have to do what the rest of us do when we're disappointed, and calmly go back home and come up with a better idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then we got the thing that got me was this week was the DOD announces that the new round of aid for Ukraine. And I thought we were done with that. And we have a handshake and a wink to Iran on more funding for them, but what I've been able to dig up is an additional package of 325 million, includes additional munitions for the U.S. being there, national advanced surface to air missile systems, and high mobility artillery rocket systems, and dozens of other Bradley infantry fighting vehicles and Stryker armored personnel carriers, among other things. Once again, we're sending them more money for military equipment that they've been selling on the black market.
So Democrats over time, all right, have always been successful in funneling money into military operations. We saw that in Vietnam. We saw that in the Arab Spring. They're good. They're good at that. They've never been successful with dealing with Iran.
Yeah.
No Democrat has ever successfully dealt with Iran.
And we've never asked them for their data sheets either. That's something that's never been asked until now. Because now
it would be pointless because they don't have the will that Iran has. The
Yeah.
Democrats don't have the foreign will that Iran has. Okay, they have, their will is focused politically here in the United States. They'll funnel money to outside wars outside the United States. They don't tend to be able to control the wars. The wars tend to control them, and they end up leaving office early. But that's just the sad fact. They tippy-toe into wars, and if you tippy-toe into a war, it will suck you in and won't let you out. It's like a black hole. You get on the edge of the black hole, you're going into the black hole no matter what. There's no way out. Nothing escapes, not even light. And that's what a war is to a Democrat. And they should know better than even getting near a war.
Yeah.
But they do. They do because they think that they can just placate it for a minute and it'll go away. Bad people don't go away. If they see weakness, it accelerates things. All they're doing is accelerating our engagement into Ukraine. You saw Johnson send the Marines and the air cavalry into Vietnam. You can bet donuts to dollars Biden's going to do the same thing in Ukraine. Not because he necessarily wants to, but because he doesn't have the will to stop it.
Yeah.
That's the sad part.
And now, we're looking at this whole China thing and spy thing. And, we know it's less than 100 miles. And this is something I mentioned on the show, not only last night, but you mentioned on your show. What would be, now we have to look into what would China want to see? And everybody says, there's nothing in Florida. Well, it's not they're going to spy just on Florida. It's the fact that they are close enough they can spy on the United States and our military installations. Now, William, the thing that got me was all of these um, 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 Chinese that went in and they bought land next to military bases. We're now starting to see um, um, aggressive listening equipment on these properties. So now we're looking into a whole new war of where China is listening to the United States. And what are they listening for?
Can we be honest about this?
Yeah.
The students coming into the United States are spies.
Yeah.
The Chinese coming across the border with those groups, they're spies. The people that are buying property near our military installations are spies. Any place and every place the Chinese can get information, they're spies. If we think anything different, we're deluding ourselves. What would we do?
Yeah. And this kind of leads to the Monroe Report. And everybody keeps, and I see
Monroe
a lot
Doctrine?
of the Monroe Doctrine. And everybody keeps saying, well, we should have fell upon that and not let China into Cuba. But when we have a weak administration, because I don't want to blame it just on on our president. I want to say it's not, remember, I always say it's not the man, it's the plan. Well, the plan isn't working. And now we're looking at them spying on the United States. And so,
So the Clintons placated the Chinese. Bush stomped any resistance out of Central South America around, the Gulf Coast. So it wasn't Father Bush was the problem. The problem began with the Clintons.
yeah.
The problem was exacerbated later by Obama.
Well, when the
He could
Clintons,
see the forest for the
when we
trees.
had
And now we have
Chinagate.
another Democrat who doesn't see the forest for the trees. Of course they're going to be here now. They've all allowed the Monroe Doctrine to die. Just like President Biden has allowed the Powell Doctrine to atrophy here in Ukraine. We have certain doctrines we don't deviate from because they're near absolute. Russia is going to war with Ukraine over their Monroe Doctrine. We should be willing to do the same or nearly the same, at least make a political effort to make it go away before we have to go to war. But what we're doing right now, for whatever reason, now, and I want people to understand, this president is the president of the United States. Nobody else is. This is the guy. This is who was chosen. This is who Congress went ahead and swore in with the Supreme Court, okay? He is the guy. He's making the choices with his administration, and for all appearances, it appears he's sitting on his hands. That's it. He's sitting on his hands. That's what he wants to do.
Yeah. And so when we're looking at the Monroe Doctrine, this was in 1823 as foreign policy statement. Before we look at this, we need to look at, like you said, the War of 1812 and the United States and the beginning stages of a revolution. And
well, the Monroe Doctrine started with we were not going to allow any more colonization in the Western world. And as these countries went ahead and threw off their colonial masters and became self-determining, we weren't going to allow somebody else to come in and colonialize. Well, communism is a colonialization. The only thing that hasn't happened yet is these people still have their rights to vote and whatnot. But the second that goes away, the second that goes away, we'll be forced to act under those doctrines, and it won't be a political act at that point.
Now the thing is they're saying that under the Monroe Doctrine that China wouldn't be allowed, or Russia, to put anything on Cuba. But see, how we have to have a president and the Department of Justice and Defense that agrees with this. And at this point,
we wouldn't allow Russia or China to control Cuba, and frankly, they don't control Cuba. Cuba controls Cuba still.
Right.
And we wouldn't allow nuclear missiles, something that would be an existential threat to the mainland of the United States, to be put on Cuba, that was part of a hostile foreign nation. So that wouldn't be allowed. But just armaments, that's kind of a fair deal. That's just conventional business. Cuba still votes for its own leaders. It's still the master of its island. So that's not a major problem. But at the very point which Cuba can no longer, the people of Cuba can no longer control their island, and if somebody puts anything radiological on that island, because we made a deal with the Soviet Union that we wouldn't intervene on that island as long as they put nothing on it and they were self-determining. They put no nuclears on it and it was self-determining.
Mm-hmm.
Once that goes away, all bets are off. Cuba may be, you know, the 51st state.
All right, I'm going to move on.
Elly, the fact is, the United States could own Cuba in 72 hours.
Yeah.
Nobody in the hemisphere could stop it.
It is so, I mean, if
the only
we were
reason
just
it
to
hasn't
hit it,
happened
it'd be
was
gone.
because of the United States self-restraint.
Is it, you know, me and you've talked about this. Is Cuba the trial run? Because I thought maybe it was Ukraine for Taiwan. But is this a trial run to see how far China and Russia can push the United States before they act? Now, they found out China flying very, very low and disrupting boats was okay. Then within days, we had this the whole thing with the China spying on Cuba. And
So everything is tied to everything. They move in small incremental ways to turn up the water boiling all the way around you. The world is a very small place now.
yeah.
The Cuba of the 60s is over. As soon as we had jet aircraft moving civilians overseas, the world shrank by 2/3.
Yeah.
When we had piston aircraft crossing the Pacific, the Earth shrank by half. And now we've got super jumbos. We have so many people. Look at England. They have more people come in and out of England itself than there is 3 times its own population, just by air travel. If Englanders were to just fill up their own airplanes coming in and out of Heathrow and the other small airports around that feed Heathrow, every person in England would have to go on 3 international vacations a year. That's how busy it is at these hubs.
Mm-hmm.
And the world is a very small place now. So any opportunity anywhere to gain a foothold, to get a little more traction, to make an extra penny, to forward a policy 1 cent, somebody's going to take it. And we have to be aware of it and be willing to stop it if it's going in the wrong direction. And that's what our Congress is supposed to be about.
And, you know, now, to bypass Congress.
Back in the 1990s, they still think that Saudi Arabia is on the other side of the planet.
Mm-hmm.
They're not on the other side of the planet. Mm-hmm. It's where they fill up their limousine at. That's Saudi Arabia now. At the Citgo, the limousine fills up at. Yeah, that's how close everything's become. And they want to think about things. They're having a hard time adjusting their thinking to the way the world really is. Ground truth. Ground truth is a very difficult thing because it defies some of your logic. It defies narratives. It defies your mythology.
Mm-hmm.
It's a hard mistress, and it let you get away with nothing.
Yeah.
And they're not ready to accept that yet.
No,
they're
because
still trying to be boys over in the boys' school, and the girls at the school. That's all over now. It's time for them all to put on the big boy pants and the big girl skirts, or vice versa, however they want to do it. I kind of scared you with that one, huh?
No, not really. I have to think on that because, we're really deep tonight, and we have a lot of um, um, a lot more coming up. I want to get to um, uh,
Other nations act in their own self-interest, and we
yeah.
have to expect them to act in their self-interest.
And then
we
you got to
need
look at
engage them
Iran,
as
and
they do.
now we have to look at the pellets full of money going to Iran. That's what I was thinking when you were talking, and I had to think on this of how we not we the Obama administration had been doing this behind our backs with our money, and now Iran is working out private agreements with the Biden administration. This is something that came out in the news today, and I'm like, how come the Biden administration keeps doing these private conversations with countries
Because
like,
they're not acting through their own State Department. Their State Department's too weak to function.
yeah,
You've got, what's the guy's name over there is behind the scene. He's over at the National Policy Shop, the Strategic Policy Shop. Oh, I forget his name. Eric? Is it Eric? Yeah, Eric. Anyway, these guys are still living in the world that they were taught about over at Cambridge and over at Yale and over at Harvard and at Georgetown, but the world's moved on. They haven't caught up. And they're trying to make and function as national policy directors, not even recognizing how small the world has become. We can have our ships engaging in any nation in the world in 7 days. 7 days. Our Air Force can be anywhere in 24 hours. We can have boots on the ground within 24 hours. Anywhere in the world.
And to think that
really register with these folks. They think they're safe. They think they've got weeks, months, and years. No.
Now, if you look at Iran and their nuclear capabilities, to me, now me and you've went over on this before. I think they've had it for years.
So, looking at the way this administration looks at it, as long as Iran doesn't declare anything and goes along with DC's narrative, they're willing to look the other way. Now, what that costs, I don't know. But what we're seeing is a narrative being funneled at us at any and all costs. So, it is what it is. It's ground truth, and we have to expect that's the way this administration's going to deal with this, because they don't have the will to deal with it in any other way. They're stuck with the world they inherited.
Yeah. And
they inherited a conservative world, and
now
they're trying to deal with it on liberal terms, and the world won't deal on liberal terms.
Now, they did have secret talks, William. It came out today that I gotta make sure I pull this up right and not close my stuff out.
No, it's not this presidency's fault, okay, that these bad actors are coming into the United States, all right? It's just a matter of that's the way the world works. They decided they were going to campaign, they were going to run for the job, and now they have the responsibility and it's getting away from them.
Yeah, because U.S. and Iran secret talks on nuclear programs. Now, why? My whole thing is FOIA. It's like Freedom of Information Act. Why can't we get these talks? Well, it's just like when I reported on Monday with Randy. There is there are certain things you can go all the way to the Supreme Court on that you say we have a right to get this information. But if it's national security, then we'll never know. And so Benjamin Netanyahu said um, he said we will not be bound, and we're not going to be subject to an agreement made between the U.S. and Iran behind closed doors. And so to me
Well,
that
Israel cannot give up its right to breathe because this administration doesn't want to give up its right to a story. All right? So they're going to act in their own self-best interest. And if you were Israel, you would do the same. If this administration was Israel, it would do the same. It's just ground truth. They have no choice. It's life or death for them. It's not about a possibility of maintaining a media narrative for the next election. It's small potatoes for this administration. It's all the beans for Israel.
right. And now get this now. I hate to move from Israel, Iran to Kenya, but there is so much. It's like Africa is the big hub for not only Russia, China, the United States, and even parts of Europe. They are now looking at um, um, Kenya as being the next um, um, the world hub, I think. And now, the thing about it was today, my friend out there said 300 people, they were basically starved to death. And now they're starting to do mass graves. And the Kenya and the people in Africa are saying we've had enough of we let China in. It almost reminds me of Australia, William, when they realized that China was using them for a port. Well, now Africa is starting to realize that you were going to come in and help us. Now we've got 300 dead, and 19 bodies were recovered within the 800-acre forested land that they were burying people in. They said there's so there is hundreds of people buried.
If China has in its best interest to placate Kenya to get its port, the people will have food. The second, it's not in the best interest of China to placate the people of Kenya to get to port. They will starve.
Yeah, and we
nations act in their own best self-interest. China is no different, and people around the world should know that Kenya and the United States are not the same people.
And yeah, see, well, the reason I grabbed this one because I'm looking at, I seen Newsom talking about the homeless and those starving in California, and he said, but you know what? We are the leader in the next generation of what we are. Everybody else will follow. Wait a minute, we've got so many people
Newsom
starving.
Says when the largest functioning financial institution in their state is primarily Chinese, Sequoia Capital, he'll say whatever the Chinese want him to say. He's doing the bidding of a foreign power and doesn't want to admit it. That's fine. That's fine. He can do that. But we don't have to believe it with him.
And what was really weird is Blinken. We had Blinken go over to China or try to get a hold of China for a meeting, and they're telling them Piff, we don't have to talk to you. So he's now resorted to
What's
begging.
in it for China?
Yeah.
What's in it for China? They already own the United States as far as they're concerned in this administration. Why talk to them now?
Yeah.
They've
And
got what
not
they
only
want.
that, I don't know how many times I've told my viewers that when Blinken or Garland or any of them go over there, the ambassadors, they make mincemeat out of them. And just on the phone alone, they made him cave. And he's like, well, I'm going to go over there. I can't see.
Blinken is part of the federal treasury, right?
Yeah.
So he goes over there and they say, we don't care. We're moving towards BRICS. Shut up and go away.
Yeah.
That's it. That's over.
Yeah.
They pushed him too far.
Well, and then,
They
they tried to sneak over and do a deal with Saudi. And in the meantime, Saudi's doing a record deal not only with Iran, but Russia and China into the BRICS. And we're just sitting there waiting to see who's going to go over and stop this.
Well, the Congress and this administration haven't wrapped their heads around the fact that China says, okay, they're going to be dominant in the world. That means we'll do what they say, not what they'll do what we say anymore. That's over. Now, it's over. It's time to move on.
Yeah.
But you've got people trying to hold on to the old ways because it's convenient, because that's the way we've done it. But it's over. History's moved on without them. They either adjust or they don't make a profit. It's time for them to move their manufacturing to India, to someplace else.
Yeah. And even India had a skirmish today where they had to pull out because, and I think it's the same area that they're fighting Chinese fighters, but they had to pull out to re-up their ammunition. And then the big thing today that a lot of the gun owners are saying is the ammunition, the lack of. And we now have armed IRS and Postal Service, but we don't even have enough bullets for them or ammunition, not alone what we would have for the United States military.
That's baloney.
See, that's
we can have all we want. We can have all we want. We choose not to have it.
And you know why I know that's baloney, William? I'm glad you said that because, we go to the store and we're looking at ammunition for guns and they're fully stocked. Okay, if they're fully stocked, then who's lying?
We can have all we want in the United States. We choose not to. We choose not to. Why? Well, that's the question. But we choose not to. We can have anything in the United States we want to manufacture and create. We have all the resources necessary. We're the most dynamic people on the planet. We're the most adaptive on the planet. If we choose, we can have it. What we don't have, we chose not to have.
We're going on that Ukraine is low on ammunition. Well, what if we just not sending them any? And we're keeping it for ourselves and we expect our allies to send it. And, when I looked at, there for a while we were getting low. But, when I went and looked this last week, and then there was a gun show here in town, and I asked quite a few, did you go? And they said yes. And I said, what was the ammunition like? They said, oh, there's tons of it. Why would they put, our manufacturers put enough ammunition out there for the locals and not have the ammunition for the military? And so this is what I asked.
Drive up the price. Drive up the price.
And they said, there's plenty. They don't understand because we've got, I want to say Fort Thompson. I couldn't, don't quote me on this one, but it's out of Jacksonville, and they have been the biggest manufacturers for guns and ammunition for 50 years, 60. And
we have deserts full of potassium.
Mm-hmm.
We have coal mines full of carbon. We have almost unlimited supplies of sulfur here in the United States. That's what gunpowder's made out of. Brass is cheap and easy to come by anywhere in the United States. We have plenty of sources for that. The only other ingredient you need is copper and lead, and that's plentiful.
Yeah. And
no problem.
So the next thing is Belarus is getting missiles. Now, all of a sudden, NATO's upset. But then we have NATO's running the biggest campaign with allies of how to use these missiles. But no, Belarus can't have them, with Russia being an ally. And, war isn't fair. And, when you look at your enemy, they're going to have just as much firepower as you. And you can't say, no, that's not fair if you got more than us.
Remember how I said incrementalism leads to larger war?
Yes.
So the time has long passed since we could stop the war in Ukraine.
Yeah. And now NATO is taking over.
Now we have a choice of one of two options. We get to fight the Russians in Poland and Hungary, or we get to fight the Russians in the western part of Ukraine.
And William, you notice they didn't say the United States take over. Zelensky looked at NATO and said, you take over NATO. And it wasn't the United States.
Now, the only other option is to put a leader in that's so strong that Russia fears they'll wipe Russia all the way to the Pacific coast.
Yeah.
And so Russia will stop. Do you see a leader like that right now?
Nope.
What do you think is going to happen in the next 2 years?
Oh, boy.
It's inevitable.
Well, he's having some dental work done, so
nobody wants a way out of it.
Nobody
wants a way out of it.
Biden is having some teeth pulled, and he's made Kamala Harris acting for now. And
yeah, she's going to stop.
Oh, yeah. Let's get to the root cause of it. Oh, boy.
Its willingness to act doesn't exist with this administration because it's focused inward. It's not focused outward.
And the thing about this is we know we got the ammunition. We know we have the military on every single boat that China or Russia could put out. But then we look at the draft, and me and you talked about this for a long time before the show. The lack of military, and I'm looking at this transgender wanting to be in the military. Now, when the draft comes up, how many are really gonna fight this, or are they going to be okay with it? Because and I told you this afternoon that I thought Iraq, when we went in, they laid their guns down, said surrender. Is this what they're planning with the weakness of the new recruits coming in, those that don't want to be there, or they're in there just to make a political statement? And this isn't the recruits we need.
Let me tell you a story. So we were going to Desert Storm, and everybody's got their bags. They've got their 30-minute bags. So call you up, you're out of the house in 30 minutes and on the base, right?
Yeah.
Another hour and a half, and you're in the air. So 2 hours, you're deployed. It's just a matter of when your feet go dry again.
Mm-hmm.
That means you're gone over the water and you've landed into the country you're going to. Feet go dry. So loading up a KC-10 full of troops and fuel, because we're ferrying jets at the same time I was in the Air Force. And this gal, she was like, no, I can't go to a war. I just joined because I wanted to go to school. And six guys jumped out of the airplane, grabbed her by the shoulders. One grabbed her bag, and in she went. Too bad.
There was, I think, a 1%
You're going to go
AWOL.
to war eventually.
I thought it was odd because I wasn't doing news at the time with the first Iraqi, whatever they called it. But there was a 1% AWOL for those that went to the front lines in our military.
Yeah, and we found them, and they got to the front lines. The thing is what happens is you fight, or you take one in the back of the head.
That's right. And me and you talked about, you said even our daughters could be looking at the draft. And, I was looking at both of my grandkids, and I said, you realize that we have the draft coming up. And I looked at my grandson, and you're fixing to be into the age of 18. And my granddaughter's like, I don't got nothing to worry about. I'm 19. And I said, no.
Girls in the Supreme Court.
They're going to do girls. And I said, even though you're 19 years old and you think you're above it, they're going to go after you too. Our daughters and our grandkids are looking at, they're going to have to go fight when these transgenders could. Now, this is my own opinion, and I might, this could be misinformation, but I really think that this administration will protect the transgender from being drafted.
They can't. They can't protect the transgendered any more than they can protect the ladies. Look, we've gone through a long evolution of equal rights in this country. And with equal rights comes equal responsibilities. The Supreme Court's not going to protect any one group. Everybody's going. It doesn't matter. Once they've gone to the point of, we'll send gals to the front line, it doesn't matter who else doesn't want to go.
I think the families are going to uprise on this. I really do think that the Democrats are going to be going.
They're going to get bodies.
Yeah. And think of the protesters right now that they're all gung-ho, and then they say, okay, well, you're going to be drafted, and they're going to be going, no. And Canada isn't going to allow them in there now. Canada said they will not protect them.
Surprise, surprise, surprise.
That's it. And I just think that these transgender or even the women are going to be backing out, saying, no, wait a minute now. I would be, if I was 18 and looking at the draft and they drafted me, I would try everything I could. But,
you're not going to resist two 24-year-old staff sergeant Marines that say you're
then I have to say, William, and then I feel pretty stupid because we had so many military men in my family. And I think my dad would be very upset if I didn't just go ahead and do it at that age. But, now how many kids came from a woke family that they're going to look at this as this is unfair because they're not really a woman, they're a man. Or they're not really a man, they're a woman. There you go.
It doesn't matter if you're a gal. We have gals in the Senate. We have gals at the White House. We have the person that's in charge of the country right now is female, while the president's getting his teeth pulled.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you're female. You get the full meal deal, the full ride. It doesn't matter if you want. It doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. Everybody goes.
And one of the last things I really wanted to touch on was about the military war complex. And I really do believe that now that there is so much, I think they're picking and choosing what they're going to invest in. And I told you earlier, I think Bilderberg is because of a gentleman that gave Alex Jones some info that uh, about 12 years ago, that the majority of Bilderberg was um, those that didn't agree with the tactics of the liberal radicals.
So Bilderberg was the one who decided we're going to have an Arab Spring.
Mm-hmm.
Like it, don't like it. That's what the Bilderbergs decided. That's what we got.
Mm-hmm.
The Bilderbergs decided that we were going to have a conflict in the Donbass. That's what we got. Now, we've had other presidents that haven't gone along with it, and they want to get rid of them. So the military-industrial complex is driven by money. They make arms. Okay, they don't make policy. They make arms. Bankers have so they're part of the financial industrial complex. We've got a medical industrial complex. We've got a military industrial complex.
Yep.
And we have a political complex. And the political complex decides what we employ and when we employ it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if they're willing to listen to the Bilderbergs, that's what we get.
Yeah.
So
and that's the
know what you're voting for.
When they have the Davos, we have G20, we have G7, we got BRICS, we got Bilderberg, we got even where the men play over there in California twice a year. And some of these, they get to talk privately, and they're wheeling and dealing. And the thing about it was, when I heard about this with Alex Jones, that Bilderberg was planning wars for the future and for like the next 10 years. And then all of a sudden, it was kind of quiet during Obama. But then when Trump came in, I thought, well, maybe he was wrong. But now look at what's going on. And I hate to say that Alex Jones is always right, but
so at the tops of governments everywhere in the world, okay, the tops of governments, I'm not talking about the rank and file, I'm talking about the very tops of governments. The people that go to these places, G7, Davos, Bilderberg, them, they look at 1,000 human bodies the same way as they look at an A1M1 Abrams or an F-16. There's no difference. You use it, you don't use it. There's no morality involved. It's just a resource.
Mm-hmm.
Now, countries expend one of two things when they go to war: treasure or blood. Now, if they run out of treasure, they'll just send blood.
Yeah.
They don't care.
Now, didn't you say there was
out in the hinterlands, it's kind of the opposite. So more than 50% at the top of governments, blood, machinery, same thing. Out in the hinterlands, the majority of people, blood is more important than machinery. Okay? Now, where that intersection happens is the difference between a volunteer army and a conscript army. It's you get what you vote for.
Yeah.
Now, most of the world are pacifists. They will not stand up to their governments.
No.
The United States is the one place in the world where that's not the case.
Where we see protests in other countries.
And we're the last to be disarmed as well. So we have to look at things the way they are, not the way we just want them to be in our minds.
That's right. Now, you mentioned this.
Because we feel something out here in Idaho doesn't mean they feel the same thing in Washington, D.C.
That's right.
And we have to understand that the same Idaho. All right. We're on different planes of thought. We feel differently. We act differently. We have different ways of making our money. And what we think is most important. Now, if you're in D.C., you're trying to maintain power, maintain hope for the future, but you have 50 states to burn up in the process, all right? But when you're out in the 50 states, you don't have a whole bunch of DCs to burn up in the process. So you're a lot more conservative. We're closer to ground truth, so we're concerned about families.
Yeah.
Families are the bedrock of any nation, all right? And protect our families. Well, look what's going on at the White House. Look what's going on in D.C. Do they care about families? Are they interested in children growing up not emotionally battered by divorce, by war, by conscription, by the endless panoply of things that can happen due to endless politics and giving in to your enemies? Well, it is what it is, and nations act in their own self-best interest. Luckily, the United States power comes from the bottom, not the top. Although the people at top, you're never going to convince them of that.
Right.
And as long as they're making money, they'll hold on to that for the last possible second. And, you know, if you know where the arms are coming from, let's be honest, you know where to go and invest your money. And you know who the contractors are going to be. If you're bringing the port to your state, you know who to invest in, right? Your friends know who to invest in.
Because I mean, it's all different, but
secret.
But when you mentioned with the military complex, you mentioned it's not just military; it's economic. It's different facets of our government. That it's not just the military complex.
No, it's they function on a fraction of what we make as human beings. Okay, just a fraction. If we let them control the fraction in businesses, corporations, in banking, in whatever way we decide to invest our money and our time, if they're not in our best interest, we're voting against ourselves.
Yeah.
We vote with our dollar and with our feet.
And I think I mentioned this earlier, but we have got to quit putting our policing in the hands of our government, because when we have a president that controls our DOJ, our State Department, our FBI, our CIA, and they decide what the president wants to do, this is where we're finding that if it was the Republicans, would they really go after themselves if they
all
put
policing
in?
needs to be local. You're right. All policing's got to be local, but it's got to be city government.
It's got to be policing that has no politics in it, because we can't keep playing
there's
politics
in everything.
Oh,
but
I know.
It needs to be close enough to home that we can get our hands on it quickly before it gets out of hand.
Yeah, and I think it's out of hand right now, William, because we have got this administration that, what got me was they got mad because Trump is before a judge that one of the ones he put in place and not one of the ones they put in place. Well,
That's why it works. All politics is local.
Yeah. And they're saying this woman is no good and she's not qualified. Wait a minute. She was put in place because she was qualified. She's not going to be the
final arbiter, okay? She's just the initial arbiter. And by the way, she is only a referee.
Yeah. And, we've got these
people that are on the jury are the ones who decide whether they're guilty or not guilty.
That's
The
it.
judge just decides what the sentencing is going to be once they're convicted. But even then, it can be appealed, and it can be appealed through the state court, then into the federal courts, and then finally into the Supreme Court.
Into the Supreme
That's what's going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is law.
Well, I don't even think it's going to get that far, because this is frivolous charges.
It's not frivolous, and it costs lots of money.
Well, you know, when one of the senators asked,
we maintain our equality.
One of the senators asked for the under the Freedom of Information Act what exactly the FBI was looking into, and it wasn't but I think 15 documents, and out of how many that they were looking into, they said the rest was memorabilia. And you know, every president from the very beginning has kept stuff, and they've had documents. The only ones that shouldn't have had it are senators. And when we found out that Joe Biden, as a senator, had these documents, how, you know, I was like, okay, let's put him beside. How many senators have got documents in their homes now?
How did we find out about how McNamara was involved within the war in Vietnam?
That's it.
We went to the Johnson Library in Texas, and we found out.
Yeah.
Was that military information? Absolutely. Was it at the top levels of government? Absolutely. Has it been happening forever? Yeah, it happens at every library.
Okay, but was it so confidential that we needed to charge him because he found something in the library?
It was confidential at the time, but not after the president left the office and the war was over. Right?
Yeah.
That's what they're saying now is, well, the war is not over. Well, yeah, kind of they are. There's no war in Iraq. There's no war in where's the other place, and Trump didn't start the war in.
He even wanted to pull out of NATO.
So what's the point?
Yeah,
there's no point.
Well, see, what I was getting at though is each president that gets in has their agenda of who's going to be policing, what kind of military actions they're going to take, or what policies they take. Because Trump was pulling out of NATO, and Biden is putting into NATO. And this, I really do believe that Trump is right, where we need to revamp our government to let's not make it so political, because all it is going to do is lead to something bad for the taxpayers or the American people.
Well, it's ultimately it's going to happen by the will of the people. I think personally. Yeah. History is headed in what Trump is saying. Okay, it's going to be irresistible into the future for the current model of how we're doing things with our institutions.
Yeah, and people need to get more involved in their Senate and Congress.
Resist it in absolute every way they can. We have to expect them to.
Yeah.
That's their jobs, right?
Yeah.
They're jobs that they're going to have to
we need to get back to where we need to get back to where you know, I look at my mom and dad, and they were like, you should be knowing what your senators are doing. You need to know what your congressmen are doing, your judges, your city council, or even your school boards. Because if you don't know what's going on, then you're just you're going to be, my mom said, spitting in the wind. And you
don't know what your neighbors think, and if you can't produce a salient argument to bring them to your way of thinking, you're going to lose in the public debate. And the public debate is how everything is resolved in this country. We believe in
Yeah.
in
We just need to get more involved like we
with
used
you.
to, instead of.
We believe in peaceful transfer of power.
Mm-hmm.
So nobody's going to get hurt here. Okay, first of all, there's no reason for anybody to get hurt unless one group or another decides they're going to be violent. But there's no reason for it because we have this mechanism of peaceful transfer of power. And if you don't like the way things are right now, wait 15 and 20 years, it's going to be going the other way. It's the pendulum swings back and forth, back and forth.
Yeah.
So a lot of this is about how we interact with our neighbors and with our grocer and with our schools and with our children. This is how we determine what's going to happen in the world. It's not about how we interact with people spilling across the border without passports. Okay, they're not going to get to vote. We're not going to let them get to vote. All right. Now there's those people who dream and would like it, and they're dreamers. That's fine. They can dream. All right. But how you become a citizen in the United States hasn't changed. Regardless of all you've seen go on around us with the border and everything else, it's still the same process to become a citizen of the United States. You still have to go through all those hoops. And once you do that, then you have the right to vote. But until then, you don't. And the plurality of the vote, in the end, will determine the direction of the country. Now, on top of the plurality of vote, you've got the Electoral College, you've got city, county, state, and federal. All right. So this is a slow walking thing. It moves like a centipede through time.
Yeah.
But the United States, that's what makes our dollar strong. It's what makes our banking advantageous all over the world. It makes us predictable. It makes us so that people in the United States can do business all over the world. It's because our government isn't fickle. Our government moves slowly and predictably, all right, compared to all the other governments. I'm not saying we're perfect. I'm just saying we're as perfect as it's ever got. But we have to be patient in some ways, but we also have to be proactive in other ways. We have to be able to make the argument of why we're going in the direction we're heading.
Yep.
And I think we're giving people the ability to make the arguments here based on great power dynamics, how the government works, how there's always two parts of every organization, the part that wants to do something, the part that doesn't want to do something. So you can always expect a group that wants to move forward and one that wants to resist it. Now, that goes through all the governments, okay, around the world. That happens here. And we have to deal with the ground truth of all these different things going on. And we can't wait till the last minute to turn these ships around.
Yeah,
we
that's
have to
right.
start years in advance before we see something going.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying, that we need to.
But that's what happened back in the 80s, is there's this guy by the name of Rush Limbaugh started mouthing up, right?
Yeah.
The ideas started percolating, and they're gaining steam. It's just like, when you're in your car and you accelerate, it loses momentum. I mean, it takes more and more horsepower to get less and less speed as you go faster. But with a jet turbine, the faster you go, the more horsepower you make. And you continue to accelerate. It continues to push you back in the seat. Well, that's the way governments are, is you start out small and then it continues to accelerate. It's not like a car, it's exponential. So it'll start out small and it'll pick up speed. And the problem right now is people in Congress think this is a 1970s Cadillac that's trying to accelerate on the freeway. And they're strapped into an F-16. They're just completely in the wrong time zone. But we know about it, and they're gonna act badly. All right, we're gonna have to moderate them because we understand what's happening, and they've lost sight of what's happening to them. We're gonna be the ones that have to console them and say, look, all's okay. This is gonna work out. It's just not gonna work out in the way you've had it work out in the past. Opportunities are going to be found in a different direction, and you have to adapt to it.
Yep.
And there's going to be resistance. 50% of that out there is just going to dig their feet in and say, no. This is the way it was supposed to. It's already gone. The time they said it's supposed to, it was already gone. That's why I was saying a couple of years ago, hey, the train's left the station. If you don't jump on board now, catch up, because this turn heading in the direction we're heading in right now actually started happening at the fall of the Berlin Wall. So all societies were going neoliberal towards this squad thing, okay? From the time the wall fell and Bush's, we're going to have his million points of light thing, global governance thing. So they've been racing at this thing since Bush got caught off guard with the wall falling down. Well, they still think they're on that same trajectory. Guess what? It's caught up. The change finally caught up.
Yeah.
The ideas finally caught up.
Oh, yeah.
The
Everything's caught up to them. It's all caught up to them. They don't know how to proceed with what they've done. Even World Economic Forum, they've even said that they may have pushed a lot of this too soon.
Or too late. Too late, too soon, doesn't matter. They just have to wait for the next cycle. They have to wait for their next cycle, and right now they seem unwilling to. So it just depends on what the weight of history can bear, and I don't think it can bear their idea.
Yeah. William, do you have anything extra to add before we close?
So, first of all, if you're female and you get drafted, you should know that everybody that goes in the military goes through the same thing. You're not alone, first of all. If you're American, you're never alone. It's a different type of responsibility. Not all governments lead us to peaceful ends, and sometimes we have to step up. But we're all capable of stepping up. We're all capable of doing our share.
Yeah.
And it's not the end of the world, but it will be a stark change to reality for you. And it will affect your families for a very long time.
Oh, yeah. It will.
And yourself. But that's the price of having liberty and the ability to have your own self-determination, have the ability to choose the job you're in, have the opportunity to go to the church you desire. Everything has a price, and this is one of them, but it's not necessarily a bad price. It's just a very different price than you're used to. Now, other people are going to say, well, gals will never have this happen to them. I'd like to think that, but there's an awful lot of gals in the military now, and they push for equal rights, and they have absolute equal rights. I don't know how that's defended in the courts, and the court will end up being the final arbiter, not the State Department, not the Department of Defense, not the President. It will be the Supreme Court of the United States.
Even Canada said they're not going to let nobody in if they're draft dodgers.
Well, right now we have an all-volunteer force. But if our military gets so depleted and there are needs, if they want bodies, they will find bodies. And if your body's the body they want, you're going to go. So that's just part of being a citizen and having power over your government. Not to say that you could be in another country and get drafted and have no power anyway.
Yeah.
But you're not going to be nearly as willing to fight.
Well, every country's different on their drafts. So, and we just go on what we have going on here. And right now, everybody needs to be very wary that if you are 25 and under, there's a good possibility you could be drafted. Don't matter if you got a family. Me and you talked about this, that the military at this point doesn't care family or what you have going on your property. It's you need to serve, and you get back to it next year.
If the military wanted you to have a family, they would issue you one. Okay? That's literally the truth. If the military wants you to have a family, they'll issue you one. They don't issue you one. That's your choice. All right? It doesn't mean you don't still have your responsibilities as a citizen. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, that is it for tonight, folks. And share and subscribe. And William, you're a great host tonight. There's a lot of info. And
I'm sorry some of this is a little dark, but
nah. We got to let them know the truth. And the more we bring out, the more they'll understand what war is really about.
We don't lie to you and blow smoke up your tailpipe like everybody else.
No.
We're giving you objective truth so you can make decisions for your lives in a way that benefits you and doesn't catch you off guard. And that's the important part.
Yeah. So me and William will be back next Wednesday, and tomorrow we've got me on weather and lifestyle news and the news, and then we'll close out at the end of the week. So William, you're a great host, the host with the most, I think we say about you every week, and we're learning.
I'm the host with the most.
And we try to show everyone this isn't just a World War III. If you want to come in and find out the down and dirty what Zelensky's doing, no, we're trying to show you what war is about from all aspects and from all over the world, so you understand war a little bit better. So, all right, folks, have a wonderful Flag Day. And William, hit us with the thumbs up for Flag Day. Hit the hearts and subscribe and follow us on Facebook.
Maybe next time we should talk about combined arms so people understand how the United States fights as opposed to how other countries fight.
Yeah.
So that they understand how it is we've learned since Vietnam to fight in a way that preserves the maximum amount of life we can possibly squeeze out of the system. And we've been very successful at that. We haven't forgotten how to do it. Whether our leaders give us the tools to do that, that's politics. That's what happens. You go to war with what you have. But we have probably the best doctrine in the world. let's talk about that next time. We can talk about the overlapping systems and how we try to protect our soldiers.
Yeah, you just have to put down in your notes with a big circle around it for the start of next week. All right, folks, have a great day. God bless. And a salute and prayers to those that have fought for this country and lost their lives and their family members. Okay, William. Hit it. All right, and we'll see you soon.